What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Movement Mindset powered by Station Athletics. I'm Chris Hardenberg, and today we have a very special guest. We have Phil Van Pelt, um, owner of Onward Physical Therapy. His location is in Cranford,
Yep.
correct? Okay.
Yep.
Cranford, New Jersey. And he's built a really good relationship with Haley and everyone over at Westfield. And so, we've talked a bunch, and through our conversations, Phil is a guy who outside looking in is doing some really great things. I know the staff and the members at Westfield have really benefited from his expertise. And I thought it'd be really cool to have him on to not just talk about him and his practice, but also some of what he thinks philosophically around navigating injuries and stuff like that. So, Phil, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it, man.
You're the guest. So let's start with you.
Sure.
Tell me a little bit about Phil, your background, and your practice.
Sure. I grew up in Cranford, right?
Okay.
That's where, went through school and then left for college. And after college, bounced around. I lived just outside the DC area. I lived in Raleigh and moved back to New Jersey, and I did home health, and I was in a bunch of clinics. So for me, I had a decent number of jobs in the first 5.5 years I was a PT. And for me, opening Onward was okay, one, I'm coming home, and two, I'm doing this right. I'm going to do this all the way. I'm going to do this the best way that I know possible, and in a way that I think hits and serves people better than what we've seen, right? So we kind of in the PT space, we're calling it PT 1.0.
Okay.
Right, where you think that dinky little yellow TheraBand, and that you're doing the same thing every single time. You're there 3 times a week. You're there with 3 other people in the room at the same time. You're not getting the attention you need. You're doing a cookie cutter type of approach, or it's just not challenging to you, especially as a CrossFitter or a fitness athlete of some kind. And saying, okay, we're not able to put mitts on people that actually helps them feel better. We're not doing a great job with exercise dosage and prescription for the rehab process to get that stimulus so people can get back to what they want. And just every part about the experience for the consumer, for that patient, is terrible, right? So one, you have the consumer side that's an issue, and as a PT, you're burning out, and you're like 2 years in.
Yeah.
You're like, I want to be doing this for another 50 years. Like I want to be able to be good at this and be doing this for a long time in a sustainable way. So for me, coming back to New Jersey, it was like, all right, this is where I'm coming back, right? Have some connections, some relationships, be able to have a little bit of an extra security blanket, and say, okay, if I needed something, my parents are still in the area.
Sure.
And say, I'm putting all my chips in, and this is the thing we're doing.
Okay.
Right. So I actually opened the clinic a year ago, and Onward Physical Therapy, for those who don't know, is a nationwide brand.
Okay.
Right? I should ask the guys. We've got probably around 40 clinics nationwide.
Okay.
Right. So it's in different cities: Atlanta, Milwaukee, Charlotte. There's one in Raleigh. We've got out in California, and LA is coming up soon. All over. Orlando just opened. Virginia Beach, Richmond. The closest ones to here are Philly and Wilmington, Delaware.
Oh,
So I'm the
okay.
only guy in Jersey, and I'm hoping to keep it that way.
Yeah.
But to grow and have multiple locations like you guys with
Yeah.
Station Athletics. For me personally, like athletically, I grew up playing baseball and soccer, and then sat on the bench for football in high school. Look at this frame; it's not really a linebacker
Yeah,
build,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's okay. And then just started working out and lifting weights, right? And then never really stopped, doing that, and liked playing basketball pickup, but also, being able to squat heavy and
Sure.
deadlift heavy and enjoy that. And then I found my way into the CrossFit world probably in 2019. COVID hit and took a step back, and I didn't have the money. I lost my job and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So found my way back in 2021, and for me that was huge because I was down to 133 pounds. Something like that,
Are
right?
you one of those
5'8".
people? Yeah, are you one of those? It's like me. I actually brought it up on a previous episode that are you one of those people that if you stop working out, you
I get
shrink
smaller.
away? Yeah.
Yeah. It takes so much effort for me to eat enough food, which we'll talk about more later, of how to optimize that for not just recovery, but performance and
Yeah.
feeling good and not feeling like you've been hit by a train from workouts after a few months or even a week.
Sure.
I have to eat a good amount of food, a good amount of protein. Otherwise, quickly, I'll start to
Yeah.
lose a little bit of weight. It's hard for me to maintain that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I try to eat real food and not just, down a bunch of protein shakes and whatnot, but
Sure.
sometimes supplementing there can be helpful. But yeah, just CrossFit. And then I was at like 133. And now I'm just shy of 165.
Bulking season,
Yeah.
JJ.
Which for me is huge.
Yeah.
Right? That's a massive difference. of, adding about almost 30 pounds
Yeah.
over. Now we're looking at, let's see, 2021, 2025, about four, call it 4.5 years, but very sustainable. It wasn't something that I had to go crazy over the top on in terms of getting super neurotic, right?
Mhm.
About weighing my food and this and that, but just keeping an eye on things and then saying, okay, I'm going to show up to the gym at least 4 days a week,
Yep.
right? I'm doing this, this, and this, and trying to optimize the other things in my life: protein, nutrition, sleep,
Sure.
stress management, all that stuff, right? So that's where my personal fitness journey has been.
Yeah.
Obviously still not the biggest dude, but at least I can, fill out a shirt a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I think my performance in the gym speaks a little bit, more wholly to what I'm capable of than even just my general size.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so that's cool. So
Yeah.
obviously you're someone who has been in and around fitness and been very
Yeah.
active. Right now but what drove you to physical therapy? Like,
Mm.
there's a lot of avenues you could go. What drove you to physical therapy?
Yeah, I'm not special, right? In that I had a knee injury, right,
Okay.
from playing basketball in college. Just pick up at the local gym, and it hurt, and then it wasn't going away, and I couldn't squat and I couldn't really jump, and I went to an ortho, and that guy in the Westfield area, I don't think he's got to be retired because he was like in his 80s, white hair,
Sure.
balding, glasses, like a classic old school
Best
guy.
case scenario, retired based on what he's telling me right now.
I hope so. I want him to have a good retirement.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He told me I was 19. He was like, "You have chondromalacia patella," and I had no clue what that meant.
Right.
Right. So I went home. I started reading. He gave me a script for PT, but I was home, I think, for Thanksgiving weekend or whatever, so I had time.
Mhm.
So I started reading and reading and reading, and I was like, "Oh, I don't think I have chondromalacia patella. I'm 19. It's softening of the cartilage on the back of the kneecap."
Okay.
What 19-year-old has cartilage that softens
Right.
at that point in time? I was
Right.
like, "There's no way." Like, sure, it hurts, but I don't think that's the issue. So I self-diagnosed it with some other blanket umbrella term, jumper's knee or IT band syndrome. There's a few different names that all mean the same thing,
Okay.
right? And I was like, I think it's because this, and this. So I went to the sports doctor at Northeastern, and they're like, "All right, cool. Like, do you study this?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "Oh, okay." And he gave me a script for PT, and I went to PT across the street, and then um, I went to PT. I tell them the same story, and they're like, "Oh, like, do you study this?" And I was like, "No." And the guy looked at me like, "Why not? Like, clearly you spent a lot of time, like, and you're interested in this conversation,
Right.
right?" And I was like, "Oh crap, you're right." So I had to retake, chemistry and another course and volunteer and kind of just hang out, do the
Yeah.
laundry, fold towels, put ice away, clean up this stuff in a PT clinic. I did that for a couple weeks, and then I applied to the PT program, got in, and then just go through years of school.
Yeah.
And that's how I got into PT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I think is cool about that story is A, um, you kind of did the work to be like, I'm gonna try to learn as much as possible. And you had people who were studying to be like, are you sure you don't know this? Right. So that's cool. But then what I love, and it was really small in that snippet, was okay, I want to get into the program. So the first thing you did was hang around the training room and fold towels and put ice away and
Yeah.
just basically be like an errand boy.
hmm
And
I just ask questions all
yeah,
the time. Why are you doing
exactly.
that? What's the point of this? Why'd you choose that? Stuff
Right.
like that.
And I think that's important to learn because there's a lot of people who maybe want to get into some sort of line of work, no matter what it would be, but they want to skip that step. They want to skip being the front desk person at a gym. They want to skip uh, being the assistant that has to just go get people lunch, but then they get to sit at lunch and try to listen to what the execs are saying so that
hmm
they can learn something. So I thought that was really cool. So you go through school, right? And I wish I wish your story of PT burnout was unique.
Oh my God.
But
No,
I've
it's not.
I've been around a lot of
Yeah.
PTs that work in some other PTs I know call it almost like meat market physical therapy, where it's
Yeah.
like you said, you see
Yeah.
3, 4 people at a time. People really don't get the help they need, and you're more just managing things than actually like diving in. So that's not unique. But what is unique is I think not everyone comes out of that to essentially be like, I'm gonna run my own practice. So what made you get the courage to be like, screw this, I'm gonna do my own thing?
I love this. So I don't think that most PTs need to own their own spot,
Sure.
but it feels like it's the only option available to them.
Hmm.
So they go, okay, well, I don't like this. So let me just go do something. And maybe it's a dock in the box. It's low overhead. You sublease the space, that's in a closet and somewhere, and that gets you started. You have a deal with the gym. You have a little bit of a community that you can help out in that moment with workshops, industry screens, whatever you may do.
Sure.
But they don't want to be a business owner. They
Yeah.
want to have a good career and a good employment scenario,
Right.
right? They want to have a decently flexible schedule. They don't want to see 20 people in a day. They want to see 6, you know?
Mhm.
They want to get paid what they're worth, right? And they want to be able to dictate not have someone dictate to them how care should go, right?
Mm.
Sometimes you're getting stuff from a clinic director or upper management, depending on like how big your current PT mill
Yeah.
is, right? They'll kind of say, oh, we need you to bill a little bit more. We need you to do this so that we can build these units and then make more money reimbursement wise with
Sure.
insurance groups. So it's not that they're interested in the game of business, but they're trying to create the job that they can't find. So for me, I love okay, I'm taking something from nothing and building it and saying, for me, it's how many PTs can I help? Right? How
Yeah.
many of them can I pull out of that ditch and say, come join me. We'll be able to do some phenomenal things for the people that we work with. You'll like your job. Go home feeling excited that you did great stuff. Like I my wife is very fortunate, unfortunate that like I come home and I'm yapping all night about the different things I've seen in the clinic that day or people I've come across, weird injuries that, happen and people tell me about and you're like, I've never seen that before. But then it's not like, I don't know what to do. It's
Yeah.
a curiosity thing, which then allows you to really dive deep and then say, okay, let me literally dive in and say, how can I help this person with something I've never seen before? Because you have the time to think, you have the ability, the system, the process to say, okay, I'm going to test this. We're going to try that. We're going to retest it. Ooh, it got better. Okay, let's do more of that. Or, okay, this wasn't what I thought was going on. Now let's look at the back or the hip or whatever it may be, right?
Sure.
To kind of PT related. But I think a lot of PTs, they're not looking for a business. They're looking for a job, right? Which is
Yes.
tough. So if you're out there and you're a PT, catch me, come find me.
Apply to
Let's chat.
Phil.
Yeah. Like I'm not officially hiring yet, but if there's a badass out there
Yeah.
that is like, I'm about this, this is what I need to do. And we can, get along and have that scenario. Like I'll take someone on and
Yeah.
help develop them and train them in kind of this approach that I'm doing so that they can have a very similar thing.
Right.
So
I
yeah,
think that's
my thoughts
awesome
there.
because that also identifies with what we're trying to do. So your story is really, I love what you said because I've said it out. I mean, JJ's probably heard it ad nauseum is like, for the gyms, there's two populations I'm super passionate about.
Hmm.
All right. So one's obviously the members, right? There's an obesity epidemic. There's an epidemic of people with high blood pressure, blood sugar issues, and it's only getting worse, right?
Right.
And so we're in a unique position where like our theme for this year is give to grow and grow to give. So what that means is we want to give as much value as humanly possible so that the marketplace demands that we grow and that we want to continue to grow so we can give and help as many people as possible. So that's the member side. But the other side that I'm also super passionate about for us is the employees, right? The people who work for us.
Yeah.
Because it's a little bit different in terms of the field. But just like you said, it's like you have physical therapists who don't really want to own a business. They don't. They want to be able to.
They think they do.
Right.
Right.
Well, they want
They
to
go that way.
Yes, they want to do physical therapy
Yeah.
and they want it to be fun and impactful. And basically, the market is dictating, well, you either work for one of these big companies and hate it, but you bring home a paycheck, or you open your own thing. And you're kind of trying to create what we're trying to do, which is like similar in the fitness space. Like I've seen so many good trainers train people and coach people for 5-10 years, burn out and go do something else because they're like, I've been broke for long enough. And especially early on CrossFit, I recognized early because I coached part-time that you either had a full-time job and you did a part-time just because you loved it. You jumped in with both feet, coached full-time, and you were just dirt poor, like dirt poor. Or you own the gym and you're probably dirt poor too. Because most of those people, like you said, they didn't want to own a business. They wanted to coach people, but they didn't have an avenue to do it. And so we're trying to do something very, very similar where it's like, no, you can earn a good living, you can impact people's lives, and you can go home to your spouse, your kids, have a house, and it's like you don't have to just ride the poverty line. So I think that's really, really cool. Now to stay on our members, right? You are a physical therapist.
Yep.
So you help people hopefully prevent injury, get back from injury. With your practice, what are some of like the most common things you see?
For me, it does go in waves if I zoom in,
Yep.
right? Recently, a couple months ago, I had a lot of like that tennis elbow back of the forearm pain.
Okay.
I have no idea why,
Yeah.
right? And then I had a couple of ankles that came in. So sometimes things go in waves. I don't know why, but the big three is going to be back pain, shoulder pain, and knee pain,
Okay.
right? That if you look at what's the most commonly injured body part? It's the low back.
Mm.
What's the number one cause of disability in America? It's low back pain leading to the point where people can't go to work. They can't do the things that they need to, and they end up on disability,
Right.
right? Which is such a sad thing because it in 99.99% of the cases, it can be managed, it can be handled, it can be treated, it can be fixed, right? So back pain, shoulder pain, and then knee pain. And I would say I probably see shoulder pain a little bit more than back pain because I think when people have back pain, they very commonly will think they need to get an MRI or an X-ray or an image because they like can't see their back.
Yeah.
They can look over at their shoulder, they can look over at their knee. And so there is something mentally about that.
Right.
That is for some reason different.
Okay.
So I think they end up in the rest of the medical system
Right.
before they get their way to PT. And I think if you go too far along that line, whether they get an injection or an image or, I'll say, God forbid, a surgery if it's not needed, or they end up kind of getting recommended to go to one of these mills.
Yeah.
They go through that process. So eventually they'll, get to a point where hopefully they come see me and we fix it and get them back to doing the things they love, squatting, deadlifting, burpees, running, jumping, whatever it may be, playing baseball with their kid, throwing a ball, throwing a frisbee, playing on the ground with their children, whatever.
Right.
But those are the top three.
Cool. So those are the top three you see. Now, being that those are the top three,
Yeah.
the goal, being a physical therapist is interesting because it's like people are always going to get hurt, but at the same time, your job is almost like to put yourself out of business. That it's like everyone's healthy, so they don't
Yeah.
have to come see me. But with that in mind, with those three things, what are some of the things you tell people that like? Trying to think of how to phrase this. Like if they're looking to avoid injury, what are some of the things you tell them like, hey, these are some of the things you really need to make sure you do so that you aren't dealing with injuries?
Yeah. Do you want me to hit on like why people get injured first, and then
Let's do that.
lead into that?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Because I know that was something that you had mentioned to me before. There are a handful of reasons, right? And usually it's a composite of things that come together that will lead someone to get injured, right? The obvious ones are terrible technique.
Yeah.
Right. Really poor mobility. You think if someone's deadlift, they go to lift that bar off the ground, you can see their spine is rounded like this. Eventually they get heavy enough, something will tweak.
Sure.
Right. So really that's about how do we optimize that technique and performance, right? Teaching them, cueing them, a little extra coaching. They need a little extra help. The other piece, mobility. If you think of the guy who's got really tight shoulders, he's trying to do a kipping pull up
Mhm.
and he can't get his arms here.
Right.
He's just yanked. And sorry for anyone who can't watch, but my biceps kind of near my eyebrow versus if I can get my arm like behind my head for the full kip motion, right? Go from that arch to the hollow, that they don't have that motion and they're just yanking on the kind of the different
Yeah.
structure of the shoulder. Eventually that's going to get cranky too.
Sure.
Right. Those are, I think, some of the more obvious objective ones that we can fix.
Okay.
Right. You can coach them out of that, out of those things. You can give them a little mobility program. You can do that. The other ones tend to be a little bit more in the shadows, right? Poor recovery, training volume spikes, those sorts of things, right? Previous injury history, honestly, the more you get injured, the more likely you are to get injured in the future. So that's
Sure.
why it's important that you do recover all the way, but then make sure that you're continuing to exercise and follow up with whatever plan is you have in place. So we've got technique, mobility, training volume, previous history. I'm sure there's, I think I said recovery.
Yeah, you said
Recovery
that.
is like
Yep.
that composite. And that leads into what you were talking about before of what can I do to help optimize and decrease the chance that I get hurt, and how can I optimize recovery from working out in the gym for performance. Nobody's gonna like this answer because it is the obvious things. It is the get 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'll go a little deeper on that in a second, but 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night consistently.
Right.
Not one night the day before you went and saw me and I go, how's your sleep? And they're like, yeah, I slept 7.5 hours last night. All right, cool. What's your average for the last week?
Right.
And it's 5 hours. Right.
Yeah.
Well, last night I was lucky I got to sleep, right? The other nights my 4-year-old got up because they had a bad dream or whatever it may be,
Mhm.
right? Or I'm on my phone scrolling on Instagram or TikTok till midnight and then I fall asleep. I get up at 5:30 and I go to the gym for a
Right.
6 a.m. class or whatever it may be. That's not quite where we want to be. Protein,
Mhm.
that's the other big one. If I had to pick 2, it's gonna be sleep
Okay.
and protein,
Love it.
right? The third, I would say, is f part of the nutrition piece, right? Are you getting enough protein? Are you consuming enough calories?
Yeah.
And there's been research on this for CrossFit gyms and other gym establishments that the athletes aren't consuming enough protein or calories.
Mm.
So if you're not fueling your body, how are you expecting the car to go when you put no gas in it,
Right.
right? And eventually something's gonna give because it doesn't have the ability to bounce back
Right.
for that next training session. And I feel like that's often the type of person who's doing a ton, right? They're doing 5 to 7 days a week of workouts and they're, doing the workouts at the gym, but they also go for a 5-mile run on the weekends, right?
Right.
And they're also playing tennis for 2 hours on Sunday. And you're like, "Whoa, okay, you're doing a lot of stuff. I love that." But let's also make sure you have the juice to do all that and
Right.
recover from all that. Because if you don't, eventually, the wheels start to fall off and something tweaks,
Yeah.
right?
It's funny you should say that. I think most people don't realize how injuries most injuries tend to be like you said, a composite of all those things.
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh, I tweaked my back in the gym deadlifting." And it's like, "Well, your deadlifting form wasn't that bad. Like it looked good. So I don't know why your back tweaked." But it's like then you start to unravel the string and it's like that's why there's a problem. Is because you're a mom of a little kid, so you walk with them on your hip like for forever. So your
Sure.
back's kind of tweaked for hours on end, and then you're sleeping 4 hours a night. You have a super high stress level.
That. Yes.
You're under eating, and so then you go to deadlift. We have a heavy single in the class, so you go to try to pull a PR, and boom, your back goes, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I hurt myself, and it was the gym's fault and the workout's fault, and it's like, no, there's a lot at play here,
Right.
and honestly, I feel like that's what makes your job and my job sometimes tough. Is like you have to be a detective, like you have to like go layers deep
Yep.
with your
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just the thing we see,
Yeah,
right? But usually it's some mixture of all of the above, right?
yeah,
I'm getting 6.5 hours of sleep a night. I'm super stressed. I've got a work deadline coming up. You know, I, I've got a couple of federal employees that come and see me,
okay,
right? They're currently worried about losing their job, right? So it's like that's a high stress environment for them day to day,
right,
as well as, they're just like waiting for the phone call that says you're done, right?
right,
That's stressful. And the body doesn't know the difference between physical stress that you do in the gym, heavy deadlift, and the stress of you sitting at your desk thinking about your boss like harping over your shoulder,
yeah,
right? The body just knows stress,
right,
right? And so cumulatively, that's why it does get tough to say it was this and not that. And it's a cumulative effect. It's some mixture. But usually we can tease out these other lifestyle factors, these other lifestyle behaviors that go, ooh, if we fix this, you'll be in a better position to handle all the things that you've got going on in life,
yeah,
right? How can we make more resilient humans, not just fix the shoulder injury?
yeah.
And that's, I think, where having the time as in my practice, right? I have the ability to sit with someone and talk for an hour, where
That's
sometimes that
awesome.
first half hour is just conversation. And that is where we get to peel back, like you said, the layers to figure out, okay, what's the thing that you're struggling with that, you had your calf blow up while you were running, you had your knee tweak while you're doing a squat, you had your back kind of get a little funky. Okay, now there's a few things. This isn't just like you're good for an injury every once in a while, which
Sure.
is you're kind of guaranteed to have something happen. I think the numbers are like 1 to 2 injuries every 1,000 training hours or
Okay.
something like that, right? So it's not like if you have something happen once every year or two, you should freak out and be like, I'm doing something totally wrong. Like you said, we're sometimes just gonna get hurt, right?
Mhm.
Because we're pushing our bodies to the limit. We are
Sure.
trying to get better. And when you toe the line that much, that consistently, something, is gonna go wrong a little bit. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Partially because one, we want the improvements that come with doing that dance, but two, people like myself and other physical therapists are here to actually help you make sure you can get back to what you love and doing those things and kind of just reassuring it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
I know your back hurts like crazy. I know your shoulder hurts like crazy when you try and lift overhead, but it's going to get better. We're going to fix this. We'll make it feel better today. We'll give you a plan and then get to it. So,
Yeah, I love what you're saying because it reflects a lot of what Dave and I have been talking on the last couple podcasts. So one of the things I say, so I'll do some remote coaching, right?
yeah.
Let's say I get an athlete and I don't do as nearly as much as I used to, but who's like, I want to get really good at the sport of CrossFit. When I hear that, the first conversation I have is like, okay, there's something I want you to understand, right? Here's the line of injury. For you to get as good at CrossFit as you physically can, we're going to be right here. And it's like my job is to be right underneath that line because that's going to drive the biggest adaptation. And you just have to accept that sometimes I'm going to go a little far under. Sometimes we might go a little far over and you
Right.
might tweak something, but we're going to ride that line. The difference though, I feel like is when like most of our gyms serve what we call like gen pop, right? People who are like, yeah, I'd love to have a bigger back squat, but at the end of the day, like I work out 3 times per week. I coach my kids' sports teams and I want to use what's in the gym for life outside the gym, right? I'm not really in the gym to be, a fitness model,
Right.
but it's more like I do CrossFit or CrossFit like fitness because I like the gamifyness of it. I like the camaraderie.
Yep. The community aspect.
Right, but I work out 3 times per week.
The rubbing elbows and
Yes.
going, come on, like I did better than you
Yeah,
today,
yeah. So those folks, it's like our message is like you you shouldn't be coming out like crippled. Like that is not the point because those aren't your goals.
No.
And so we recently did one episode where the difference between discomfort and pain, because a lot of people
that.
newer to fitness tend to not understand the difference between those. And Dave referenced like if you're gonna have any growth in life, not even just in the gym, but in life, you have to experience some level of discomfort. So discomfort is a good thing. He's like, pain is a signal. And so that's one of the episodes we talked about. But then the other one was kind of like you mentioned, like the amalgamation of like your lifestyle factors and how that affects what you do in the gym and the willingness to adjust and put your ego down to adjust the workout for what you're actually able to do. And how we say avoiding injury is a two-person street, right? It's on the coach to be able to, like you said, the guy who doesn't have the shoulder mobility,
Sure.
right? It's on the coach to be able to recognize that and be able to like, hey, maybe we shouldn't be doing kipping pull-ups, right? You also can't do a strict pull-up. So we really shouldn't be doing kipping pull-ups, right? And then it's on the member to listen to the coach. And then also, if they do have something going on, communicate that to the coach.
Definitely.
So with all that being said, Phil, right, what I kind of hear you saying, and I wonder if you feel this way, I feel like from what you said, what's unique about your practice is that most physical therapists are going to go in and try to treat the injury at hand, right? To get you back to doing what you want to do. But I don't know that all physical therapists are having that first half-hour conversation like you talked about, where it's like more than just how did this happen, but it's like, cool, let's talk about your background. Let's talk about your family. Let's talk about, is that something you feel that is unique about your practice? Or is there something else that you're like, this is what I feel like is the unique thing about my Onward facility?
I don't have to have that half-hour conversation with everybody,
Sure.
right? Sometimes it is very cut and dry, where I caught a squat clean funny. I felt something in my thigh.
Yeah.
I strained it pretty solid. I go, okay. And it's the first time I've had something happen in a long time, let's say. And for every single scenario, I have someone in the back of my head that I'm thinking about. So when I like rattle off these random
It's
things,
you, Steve. I've been
right.
thinking of you the whole
Carlos,
time.
it's for you, buddy. What was it? So the thing that makes my practice different, something we like to say in the Onward world is excellence looks different.
Okay.
Right? We are trying to be better in every facet. I've thought about what it looks like when you walk in the door. I've thought about what it smells like when you come into my clinic. I've thought about what it's like when you're laying on my table staring at the ceiling, right? When you're face down on the table staring at the floor,
Right.
right? All these little things I've thought about hopefully every single detail and try to make them better. And that's true also in the clinical practice of how good am I as a physical therapist, right? Can I make my hands a little bit softer when I'm holding your head for neck related stuff, right? So it's not, nobody wants like pokey, hard fingers jamming into their neck. It doesn't feel good. Right?
Soft hands, Phil. He's just gentle on your neck.
I mean, we want to get people feeling better. There's other sayings we
yeah.
Where it's iron fists inside velvet gloves.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So you want to be firm, you want to be purposeful, you want to have a good effect, but you want to be soft and comfortable for the patient at the same time.
Right.
Right. Sorry, I know I'm going off the rails here.
No, you're fine.
But sometimes people go to PT and they'll be like, oh, I went to pain and torture and I was, hurting the entire time I was there. It's like, well, I very often don't have to do that.
Right.
The goal is you come in to see me and feel better. So why am I like making you squirm on the table 80% of the time you're with me? If the goal is to feel better, you don't feel better in that moment. Right. But then later you feel better. You're like, oh, it worked. Like, okay. So I think the thing that makes Onward different, the thing that makes my practice different is yes, we have the time to break it down if we need to.
Sure.
We have the time to make sure that we can figure out what the problem is, find that root cause, find what's going on, and then address that, treat it, and retest it, and know that we hit the nail on the head
Sure.
and that we weren't just swinging with our eyes closed.
Yeah.
Right. And getting people back to all of the things they want to, finishing the drill, getting all the way to the finish line, being able to not be, I'll say, scurried out the door once your shoulder feels better, right? When you're doing everyday activities, but I want to get a muscle up. Okay, well, let's work on some things to help with that as well, right? So it's really it's not one thing,
Sure.
right? And that's why it's tricky for me to articulate. But I like the idea of um, saying it's because we believe excellence looks different, and we're trying to be excellent. We're trying to be some of the best physical therapists that are out there, constantly improving in every facet of our game, so
Yeah.
that when you come in the door, we can give you the best service, the best experience, the best outcome that's possible.
Yeah. That's cool. So you've been doing this. You said you've been open a little bit more than a year.
Yeah.
We connected when our Westfield location opened. You bridged that gap with
Yeah.
Haley, and you guys have worked really well together. Obviously, you want to grow your practice, but you could connect with any gym you want, right? To you, and this is a little self-serving, but to you, what made it attractive to be like, yeah, I want to connect with these guys. I want to connect with this location or this company. What about Station Athletics were you attracted to other than the fact that it was just a gym that you could connect with?
Well, I'll be honest with the story, right? That you guys emailed me because I have my CrossFit
Oh,
L1,
that's right.
right?
I
And we're
forgot
like, hey, you
about
want to
this.
coach for us? And I was like, ooh, like I have it kind of for street cred, right? So that I can say, listen, like I do understand what you're going through. I can coach you through with a PVC pipe how to do a snatch or a
Sure.
clean or whatever. We're kind of there. So I was like, I won't coach for you, but I'll help you in any other way, right? So you guys actually approached me kind of
Yeah.
out of the blue, which is fine. So I didn't know going into it, right? Kind of what is it about Station Athletics,
Yeah.
right? And so I connected with Haley, and I've done injury screens, I've done workshops, I've got a hip mobility workshop in Westfield. That's the first Saturday of May.
Okay.
I forget exactly what day that is, but after the morning classes on
Yeah.
Saturday, that first Saturday, I'll be there. So if you want to come, please feel free to come join us.
Westfield members,
Yeah.
come see Phil. He'll help make sure you're maximizing what you're doing.
The as I'm in a lot of gyms,
Yeah.
right? I work out a ton. Partially just to kind of show people like, hey, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
Right. But it allows me to see a lot of different gyms and like what are the I'll say the positives and the negatives, what are the things that people like, what are the things they don't like, and all that stuff, right? And I think the way that Station Athletics Westfield has approached programming is really nice
Yeah.
because people don't think of it as a CrossFit gym because it's really not,
Yeah.
right? It's not the super intense, high intensity, all the time, super heavy with every lift and exercise. And there are workouts that are programmed where it's 5 rounds, not for time, but
Yeah.
for quality.
Yeah.
That I think a lot of programming in the CrossFit space has moved away from, unfortunately.
Yes.
Right. When you think more traditional CrossFit, like sometimes you come in and it was just 7 rounds of 3 back squat. And that was the day. If you think like true traditional, old school CrossFit
Yeah.
programming. But now it's everyone has to have a heavy strength piece and then like a Metcon that's almost just as heavy doing the same movements that were over here. Or maybe it's a different movement that you haven't primed and it's also heavy. And you walk out and you do that 5 or 6 days a week and you're feeling really run down pretty quickly if you're
Yeah.
not careful. But like just this past cycle with Station Athletics Westfield, we were able to take Wednesday mornings and just work on double unders for
Mhm.
12 minutes. Nothing else programmed with it. Do batches of whatever you can.
Yeah.
Take a break for a minute and try again.
Yeah.
Right? Which gives you the opportunity to get better at that. You get a little workout in, but it's not soul crushing.
Yes.
And that is way better for the general population to make sure that they're getting a good stimulus, that they're getting the dose of fitness, that medicine that they need to help stave off some of the chronic conditions you talked about before that are killing our country and our neighbors and our loved ones in our communities, and still be able to do the things they want to and have a little bit of swagger with it.
Yeah.
Right. We still back squat. We just did a back squat, front squat kind of alternating piece
Yeah.
as well.
Yes,
Right.
yes,
That was
yes.
fun where they go, okay, I can do that. Right. And it has taken away the, I think, intimidation factor, which is
Mm.
huge, but then still exposes them to the heavy lifting that they need for the bone density that they'll want to have when they're 80,
Yeah.
for the ability to get down on the ground, a burpee,
Yep.
and get back up when they have grandchildren in 20 years.
Yeah.
Right. I think that piece has been really cool to see that you're right. It's a I think a more relaxed population, general gen pop,
Mhm.
right, that comes to Westfield versus some of the other gyms I go to. And that's not to say negative about those other groups of people
Sure.
that found other gyms. I think there's always going to be an option for every single person,
Right.
right? But I think the thing that makes Station, you guys like Station as shorthand? Do you ever
Yeah,
do
yeah,
that?
you could definitely do
Okay,
that.
all right. I was like, I don't know. That makes Station a little bit different is that it's made it really approachable.
Yeah,
Like I think anybody can walk into Station Athletics and start and not feel super intimidated
sure.
during the workout because I like CrossFit. I'm a CrossFit guy,
So am I,
right?
yeah.
But when you walk into a CrossFit gym, if it's your first day and you look over and you see Quan, I'm going, shit, man. Like I can't hang with
I
that.
might be in the wrong place.
Right. Like you think automatically, right? Like just based on what he's doing, he's kept his shirt on the whole time. But just
Yeah,
based on what he's doing, you're like, I can't do that
right.
because it's so far away. But if you have a bunch of 43-year-old moms,
Mhm.
right, who've got, a couple kids in high school and they're coming in and everyone's somewhere in that reasonable level, the branding that happened that attracted that group of people makes it so that it feels like I'm here with people who are like me.
Yeah.
That there's so much power in that, right? To make a community be closer knit and to have them buy in so that they stay coming for a long time.
Yeah, that's cool, and that's something where our district manager, Dave, he was at Westfield, I wanna say last week one night, and he was like, "Dude, there was like 6 people in class, 6, 7 people in class. There was a PT session in the corner. The music was going. People were having a good time. They were smiling." He was like, "The energy was awesome." And that's something where it's like you said, I mean, we experienced it here in Sparta. So we have a gym up the road that does CrossFit,
Yeah.
and we have a women's gym in the same town.
Okay.
Um, and it was something that Joe noticed that we were losing out on a really big subsect of the population because they were coming into the gym, which is a traditional warehouse space, not Westfield, which is really
Right.
nice,
It's like a
right?
more of a studio feel.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they go into that space, they look in there, it's a warehouse. People are swinging around with their shirts off, and they're like, you know what? Not
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
And the town also has a very high stay-at-home mom population. So he opened up a gym with babysitting and it's like
Cool.
exploded, right? And
Huge.
so we have nearly 300 members between those two locations.
Phenomenal.
So hearing that is really cool because that's exactly what we're trying to do at a location like Westfield and a lot of our locations going forward is making it approachable where we still have the core principles of what you need to get results,
Right.
right? We're not like an Orange Theory that abandons lifting weights altogether. But making it in such a way that it's like you can grow and develop over time and still, like you said, most of those people are not coming in unlimited, right? They're coming in 3 days a week because
Right.
that's what their schedule
Yeah.
can dictate. And so it's like, how do we get people results in that? So one of the things you said earlier was, if you had someone who's like, Phil, what are the big rocks I can do to like not get hurt? You're like sleep, protein, and oh shoot, what was the third one?
I'm gonna put protein and eating enough calories
That's
kind
what
of
it was.
together.
Yes.
Right. The true separate third piece is like 1, 2A, 2B,
Okay.
and then 3 would be I'd say stress management.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. How do you manage stress?
Yeah.
Not do you have stress.
Right.
We all have stress, a ton of it. And that's okay. But it's how do you deal with that stress?
Right.
Right. And I think that is, where we're turning. I think as a society of recognizing like there is just stress.
Yeah.
If you can do a better job of dealing with that and having your body not be in this constant state of fight or flight all the time, where you're like super wound and anxious, you go to lay down at night and your mind is racing a million miles an hour
Yeah.
because you're thinking about all the things that happened in your day or that are going to happen tomorrow
Yeah.
and kind of stressing over a little bit. And it doesn't allow you to
Yeah.
slow down, slow your breathing, and go to sleep. Ideally, falling asleep within like 15, 20 minutes, right? That piece, again, I talked about it before of like the body just knows stress.
Sure.
So at a certain point, when it's too much stress,
Something's
breaks.
gonna break.
Something
Yeah.
breaks. I don't want to use that term, right? But something's gonna tweak, something's gonna hurt, something's gonna go off. You're gonna snap at your spouse a little bit, right?
Yes.
Like because that's your breaking moment. Or like your low back tweaks and you're just not quite sure why, like something. So I would say stress management is that third piece and being able to have good strategies on how to deal with stress in your life so that you can then handle what comes each day.
I love
Would
that.
be
So
1, 2, 3.
it's in total alignment with what we preach at the gym, right? So everyone who comes into our program gets an individualized meal plan, right? The biggest macronutrient we stress is, and we don't get into like true macros for new people. It's just like,
Sure.
hey man, make sure you eat 6 ounces of chicken, right? Make sure
Yeah.
you eat this. And so it's making sure you're eating enough protein. And listen, some of the people who are looking to lose weight are going to operate at a slight calorie deficit. But like you said, it's eating enough calories. One of the things I would always say when I was involved with the members more directly is you should never be uncomfortably full or uncomfortably hungry. Like if you're in that spot,
I like that.
you're probably doing something wrong.
Right.
So we're in total alignment with that. And then the other thing, stress management is something we preach all the time. But we're people, we're humans,
Yeah.
right? And so there's going to be times where like, okay, hey, my general manager's been talking to me, my coaches have been talking to me. I know this is what I need to do, but sometimes you just get in the rat race of life and you're like, I just need to work out and or you step off a curb wrong or whatever the case may be, right? So something tweaks. What I guess what are some things you would recommend or maybe some key rocks that a member at our gyms could take away? And I know the big answer is it depends, right? But that they could do while they maybe they're rehabbing something
Mm.
so that they don't have to like completely, just sit on a couch and lay down until they feel better.
Okay, well, we want to avoid total rest.
Yeah.
Regardless of what your injury is, right? If I broke my arm at my bicep,
Yeah.
I'm still going to be going to the gym. A couple years ago, I crashed like a electric bike in like electric assist bicycle
Okay.
in New York City. I may have broken my foot. I'm not totally sure, but I was able to walk on it. Like I went through the tests and I was like, all right, like based on these parameters, I didn't need to go get an X-ray.
Sure.
So I was like, okay. I was out of work for 4 days.
Okay.
And the last job I had before opening Onward, but I never missed the gym in that time. And I got back to work in 4 days. And I didn't miss the gym. I was doing burpees on one foot
Okay.
in my living room.
Right.
Right. That you don't need to be that crazy necessarily.
Yeah.
But I think if you are hurt, you're going through rehab, going to the gym, almost no matter what, and saying, hey, coach, I have a problem with this. Can you give me a modification? Right. That ideally, and this is what I've done. I've done a couple seminars, like coaches workshops with coaches from
Mhm.
different gyms. I did it with Westfield
Yep.
back in August last year. And that's, I think, where that relationship really blossomed, right? Was like I said, listen, one, I'm on the same page as you. We want people to come to the gym and stay in the gym.
Yes.
Because then it's easier to maintain that consistency. One, for them, and two, for the gym.
Right.
On multiple business fronts.
Sure.
Right. And as that person, if you're injured, going to the gym and getting your blood pumping, getting your heart rate up and working around that, right, will allow you to actually get better faster.
Yes.
Because the blood has those nutrients that your injury needs to heal and get better faster. And it'll clear out some of that inflammatory gunk and some of the broken down tissue, right? If you like sprained your ankle, you have a broken down ligament, right? That is partially torn. Okay, cool. The body's going to go in and fix and clear out the cellular debris and then lay down new tissue that's healthy and strong, right?
Okay.
So you like staying active in any way you can is huge because that is going to make you feel better mentally. It's going to feel better socially. You don't feel like you're missing out with your friends at the gym, your normal time at the 9 a.m. or whatever it may be. Physically, it's going to help you get better faster. And when you get back, you don't have this massive gap between where you are and where you were trying to get back to it. If changing the body part, I'm sorry, but if I like tweaked my shoulder and we're doing overhead press, I may not be at my 1 rep max that I was 3 weeks ago before I tweaked it, but I can be way closer to that and get back to that faster than if I didn't lift anything with my arm and waited 6 to 8 weeks before it got better, until it got better.
Right.
Right. So if I had to pick one rock, it would be stay in the gym.
Yeah.
And ask coach for a modification where you can very often work that same body part, but just not as you think, like as intensely.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's changing the exercise. Sometimes it's changing the range of motion. Sometimes it's doing like a heavy isometric, right? Where you're flexing that muscle, but it's not moving, right? So that you can still get a stimulus in that area, but not strain it the way that it's in a way that's already irritated.
Yeah.
Right. And then on the other side, if you're dealing with something, come see me. That's my plug.
Right.
That's like my only plug. Find a PT that understands the exercises you're doing, right? If it's not me. Find someone who does work out, who you can see, hopefully, like on their social media, or based on looking at them, yeah, you've done a couple burpees. You lifted a heavy bar once or twice in your life. So when I tell you I want to get back to lifting a heavy bar, you know what that's like.
Yeah.
You know what that means. You know what's required of that. Because, I hate to say it, but, nobody wants to listen to the doctor that is 350 pounds, smokes, and, looks unhealthy, right? So PTs need to do the same like need to make sure we're not doing that. That we are a good representation of what it means to be striving towards fit and healthy, so that when I say I can help you get back to that fitness, you believe it and you know, okay, this guy lives that life. So he can resonate with all the things that I need to be able to do, the things I want to do, and how to get me there.
Yeah, I think that's cool because that's again another correlation between our two lines of work is like there is like one we filmed a podcast a while back and it was called like Walking the Talk, right?
Mm,
And it's really big in our company that like all of our staff works out and works out regularly
right.
and is like lives the healthy lifestyle they preach. Now, are we perfect? Absolutely not.
No.
But there should never be a point in my opinion that someone walks into the gym and it's like, man, I just saw my trainer smoking outside, crushing pizza. Like he looks like he's barely slept every time I see him. And it's like, he's telling me not to do those things. Same thing for physical
Yeah.
therapy. It's like, it's a little bit different because you could probably get away with being unhealthy to a certain degree, but at the same time, not because if I want to get better and I want to go do something active, whether it's play pickleball, which is the big thing now, or
Right.
work out in the gym or go for a hike, and you're fit, then it's like, okay, this guy probably has an idea of what it's like to rehab back to fitness activities as opposed to just like walking up and down stairs, right? So I think that's really cool. And that's something like we said it beforehand. It's something that we preach all the time, but I do recognize that sometimes when someone has the letters DR in front of their name, that like that carries weight to people.
Definitely.
And so for a physical therapist to be like, please, please keep going to the gym is I think super empowering because when implemented right, what we do in the gym, what you guys do, they work so hand in hand. It should, in our opinion, it shouldn't be a situation where coaches are being like, physical therapy, it doesn't work, or like physical therapists being like, do not do that anymore. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like those are the two things I've
That's
heard.
PT 1.0.
Yes,
That's back in the day.
exactly, which is like
Those days are gone.
so not the thing. Like anyone in a gym who tells you physical therapy doesn't work has never been to a practice like yours, right? Same thing, a physical therapist who says you absolutely do not do any fitness, don't go to that gym, right? Maybe the gym is bad, right? But if you have a good relationship, it's like, no, you should keep working out. So I think it's cool that that's a lot of what you guys preach and a lot of what you guys stand for. Um, I guess the last thing we'll go over kind of before we hop off the mics, Phil, is there anything we didn't touch on that you're like, I really want to get this message out there about
Well,
Onward?
no, that wasn't my goal, so I didn't really think about it, to
Yeah,
be
it's
honest.
fine.
Sorry. But I think, I'll just kinda reiterate one more time the for the, like, Station Athletics members, right, that if you have something going on, staying finding a way to stay in the gym will be one of the better bets, right?
Mhm.
Working with a coach, even if that means you message them outside of just the class time, because if you are dealing with something that's pretty irritable, pretty intense, pretty severe, right? But you're like, I want to stay in the gym, just like how? You may need a little more time to strategize and look at the workout more than the 30 seconds before the 3, 2, 1 go,
Yeah.
right? So whether that's, myself, right? Like message me and say, hey, here's the workout that's coming tomorrow that I want to do. Or can you give me modifications or recommendations or whatever? Or like letting that coach know
Yeah.
beforehand, ideally, so that they can kind of plan on it. Like I've keyed in a couple of coaches. Hey, I've got so and so who's coming to see me. They're coming to this workout later today. Like, here's the
I
modification they're
love
gonna make.
that. Yep.
And they go, perfect. So when that person walks in, they go, I'm ready. Right.
Yes.
Now, as a coach, they feel more prepared to help serve that member that is coming to their class. Right.
Yeah.
And that person feels like they're being taken care of. And I think that is a beautiful thing when we think of how do we help serve people and have raving fans and great members of a gym.
Yeah.
So find any way you can to stay a part of the gym, going to the gym. And if you need help with that, definitely let me know. Cause like I can't do it for free, right?
Yeah.
Like, but if I could do what I do as a physical therapist and money was not a thing, I'd still be doing the same job,
Yep.
right? I love it that much, which is why like I talk about it with my wife all the time. It's the thing I think about the most. It's fitness, physical therapy. You're right. There's a overlap. They're very seamless. There isn't this gap in the middle
Yep.
anymore, right?
Yep.
And if you feel like there is that gap with whatever rehab provider you're working with, find a better one,
Yeah.
to be honest.
I think that's a good thing to kind
Yeah.
of leave it on. I love that,
Okay.
Phil. So listen, guys, Thanks for coming on, Phil.
Yeah,
If
thank
you
you.
are in the Cranford, Westfield area, go see him. The man knows what he's doing. As always, guys, like and subscribe to us on YouTube and Instagram. Give us a 5-star rating on the podcast platform you listen on. We'll see you at the gym.